In 1628, a 9-year-old boy stood in a German courtroom, his small hands trembling as he signed a confession he couldn't even read. Within 72 hours, he had condemned 14 adults to death. Within a week, he was dead himself, his body added to the growing pile of corpses that fueled what historians would politely call judicial proceedings. His name was recorded in meticulous court documents, filed away with the bureaucratic precision of a grocery list. And then the machine simply continued its work. No mourning, no hesitation, just the methodical turning of gears that had been engineered to consume human lives with the efficiency of a slaughterhouse. This wasn't medieval superstition or Dark Age ignorance. This was Renaissance Europe, the age of Shakespeare and Galileo, of printing presses and universities, of supposed enlightenment and progress. And yet, somehow, this same civilization had constructed the most efficient human processing system the world had ever seen. A machine that didn't require belief or even hatred, just repetition and the paralyzing fear of being next. Between 1560 and 1660, tens of thousands of people were systematically tortured and executed across Christian Europe. And here's the truly disturbing part. The killing was never actually the point. What was being built, case by case and body by body, was something far more insidious than a death count. It was a psychological weapon that taught entire populations a single, devastating lesson. Stay invisible, stay silent, and never, ever give anyone a reason to remember your name. By the time the machinery finally ground to a halt, entire villages had been depopulated, family lines had been erased from existence, and everyone left standing had learned to live in a state of permanent, exhausting terror. This is the documented version of what happened, the one with names and dates and procedures recorded in court, archives that still exist today, the one that shows us exactly how civilized, educated religious people constructed an industrial-scale nightmare and then convinced themselves it was necessary. The witch hunts are usually shoved back into the Middle Ages in our collective imagination, safely distanced from modernity, comfortably categorized as the product of ignorance and superstition before the light of reason supposedly dawned. That's completely, dangerously wrong. These events happened during the Renaissance and Reformation, during the supposed flowering of European culture and intellectualism. Martin Luther had already nailed his thesis to that church door in 1517. The printing press had been churning out books for decades. Universities were producing scholars. International trade networks were expanding. Literacy rates were climbing. The scientific method was being developed. And in the middle of all this progress, in the same towns that produced groundbreaking philosophy and art, authorities were methodically torturing people until they confessed to having sex with demons and flying through the air on broomsticks. This wasn't a contradiction between enlightenment and barbarism. It was the same system producing both, because underneath all that cultural achievement, Europe was hemorrhaging from 1,000 different wounds. The Protestant Reformation had shattered Christianity into warring factions that treated each other with a hatred usually reserved for foreign invaders. Catholic and Protestant territories existed in a state of perpetual paranoid competition for survival and legitimacy. The 30 Years' War, that charming little conflict from 1618 to 1648, would eventually slaughter approximately 8 million people, roughly 20% of the population in affected regions. But even before that spectacular bloodbath, Europe was coming apart at the seams. The Black Death had never really disappeared. It just kept coming back in waves, sweeping through towns every few years like a recurring nightmare. Harvests failed with grim regularity during what we now call the Little Ice Age. Decades of colder temperatures that shortened growing seasons and left populations perpetually on the edge of starvation. Governments were fragile constructs held together by violence and the vague threat of more violence. Borders shifted constantly. Local authorities competed with regional powers. Kings fought with nobles. Everyone fought with everyone else. And in the middle of this spectacular chaos, Ordinary people were just trying to survive long enough to see tomorrow. When things went wrong, and things went wrong constantly, people demanded answers. Why did the crops fail again? Why did half the children die before their 5th birthday? Why did the neighbor who seemed perfectly normal last week suddenly turn violent? Why did everything feel like it was spiraling into an apocalypse? The real answers were too big, too impersonal, too uncontrollable. Climate change, disease ecology, political instability, economic collapse. Those explanations offered no comfort and no solution. What people needed, what they craved with a desperate hunger, was a cause they could identify, and more importantly, someone they could blame. Enter the devil, not as some distant theological abstraction, but as an active, present, malevolent force working through human agents to destroy Christian society from within. But they agreed on this. Satan was real. His servants walked among them disguised as normal people, and they were actively working to bring about the end of the world. When crops failed, it wasn't weather patterns or soil depletion. When children died, it wasn't disease or malnutrition. When communities fractured, it wasn't economic pressure or political manipulation. Someone had made it happen through supernatural means, and that someone lived nearby, probably someone you knew, possibly someone you trusted. Certain people attracted suspicion with the reliability of magnetism. The pattern repeated itself across different regions with eerie consistency. Widows without family support were perfect targets, vulnerable, visible, economically precarious, lacking male protection in a society that treated unattached women as inherently suspicious. Healers who used herbs and folk remedies suddenly found their centuries-old practices reinterpreted as demonic contracts. Midwives present when births went catastrophically wrong, which happened constantly given the horrifying maternal and infant mortality rates, became obvious explanations for tragedy. People who argued with neighbors over property lines or livestock or debts discovered that those old conflicts could become death sentences when misfortune followed years later. People who did unattend church with sufficient regularity signaled something dangerous in a time when religious affiliation and survival. And sometimes there was no clear reason at all, just years of accumulated resentment, envy, or that indefinable social discomfort that made someone seem wrong. Once someone was named, they retroactively became the explanation for everything that had gone wrong in living memory. That harvest that failed 3 years ago? She must have cursed the fields. The livestock that died last winter? He made a pact. The stillborn child? She was there when it happened. Fear didn't require evidence. It just required a name, and once that name was spoken, the machine activated. In 1486, 2 German inquisitors named Heinrich Kramer and Jacob Sprenger published a book called Malleus Maleficarum, The Hammer of Witches. And this wasn't just another medieval text about demons and magic. This was something new, a procedural manual, systematic and organized, that explained exactly how witchcraft worked, how witches operated, how they were recruited by Satan, how to identify them, how to question them, and most importantly, how to justify what came next. The book was an instant bestseller by medieval standards, printed across Europe, translated into multiple languages, distributed to courts and churches and legal authorities. Between 1486 and 1600, it went through 28 editions, becoming the reference manual that normalized a process of industrial-scale human destruction. The Malleus made several key arguments that created a logically closed system from which there was no escape. First, witchcraft was real, organized, and widespread, an actual conspiracy rather than folklore. Second, witches operated in secret, hiding among ordinary people, appearing completely normal, which meant literally anyone could be a witch. Third, witches would always deny their activities because deception was their nature, which meant denial was not evidence of innocence, but rather evidence of guilt. Fourth, physical evidence could be found on the body in the form of marks, scars, or areas insensitive to pain that indicated a demonic pact. Fifth, and most critically, Confession was the goal, and everything in the process was designed to produce confession, regardless of actual guilt or innocence. This logic created a perfect trap. Accusation triggered investigation. Investigation always found something, because investigators knew what to look for. The accused always denied it, because they were innocent. Denial proved guilt, because witches always lie. Interrogation produced confession, because human beings break under torture. There was no exit from this system once you entered it. Once the Malleus established the framework, courts across Europe began following remarkably similar procedures, despite having no central coordination. The process had distinct, repeatable steps that were documented in court records with bureaucratic precision. Step 1. Accusation. Someone makes a claim. A neighbor reports strange occurrences. A relative mentions suspicious behavior. Sometimes a child repeats something they overheard. The accusation doesn't require proof or evidence, or even basic credibility. Suspicion alone is sufficient to begin proceedings. Step 2. Arrest. The accused is removed from their home without warning, usually at night, taken to a cell, separated from family and community. This isolation serves multiple calculated purposes. It prevents them from fleeing. It prevents others from helping them. It signals to the community that authorities have taken action. And it begins the process of breaking down the accused's sense of reality and psychological defenses. Step 3. Examination. The body is searched for marks, moles, scars, birthmarks, anything that could be interpreted as evidence of a devil's mark, proving a demonic pact. Sometimes areas of the body were pricked with needles to find spots insensitive to pain. If the accused didn't react, either because of natural nerve distribution or because terror had numbed them, this was recorded as definitive proof. The examination was often conducted publicly or semi-publicly. The humiliation was not a side effect. It was intentional. Step 4. Interrogation. The accused is questioned, and this is where the system revealed its true genius. Sometimes physical torture was applied using techniques that varied by region, but included thumbscrews, strapado, which involved hanging people by their arms, bound behind their backs, leg vices, and stretching racks. But physical pain wasn't always necessary, or even preferred. Exhaustion was often more effective at breaking people down. Sleep deprivation, days without rest, constant questioning, disorientation, loss of temporal awareness, hallucinations from fatigue. The accused would be woken every few hours, questioned intensely, returned to their cell, then woken again before they could achieve real sleep. After several days of this treatment, most people couldn't think clearly or maintain consistent stories. But here is the truly diabolical part that made this system so effective. The interrogators didn't wait for the accused to invent a story themselves. They supplied one, complete with specific details. You flew through the air at night. You attended a gathering in the forest. You met the devil there. He appeared as a man dressed in black. You signed a pact with him. You renounced God. These weren't questions seeking information. They were statements that the accused simply needed to confirm. The exhausted, terrified, broken person eventually repeated these details back, sometimes word for word, and this was recorded in official documents as voluntary confession. And here's where the machine truly revealed its self-sustaining nature. Confession didn't end the case. It expanded it exponentially. Because after confessing to their own supposed activities, the accused was always asked the same final devastating question. Who else was there? Who else attended the gathering? Who else made a pact? Every name produced led to another arrest. Every arrest led to another interrogation. Every interrogation produced more names. The system fed itself with the mathematical precision of a pyramid scheme, growing exponentially until entire communities had been consumed.